Lots of thoughts coming in on the Vancouver Ford text line. Please continue to send them our way, 503-8646-FAN. We've got one here that says the secret score should have been 50 for today's game because it feels like it's been forever since an Oregon kicker made a 50-yard field goal.
That's true.
You know what? We'll be talking about it a little bit later. I didn't think we were going to get a kicking controversy this early, but we're at least giving other opportunities out in the special teams, so we'll talk about that a little bit later ahead. Another thought says, what concerns me about this Oregon offense is they really struggle if they don't get explosive plays. I also feel like Stein gets a little bit too cute. I have some thoughts on that as well. I specifically thought that when they had the wide receiver pass last week, when it felt like maybe it wasn't needed. I didn't necessarily think that about Stein tonight, but we'll get into the offense's shortcomings a little bit later, as well as your thoughts coming in on the Vancouver Ford text line as we continue with the show. But we leaned on Jordan James in the first segment as the offensive star of this game. You started to touch on this a little bit in the opening segment as well, though. The defensive line was just so stellar today. The way that Oregon bottled up in the first half, the entire run game of the Spartans, and they were giving Aiden Childs havoc on almost every single play was really, really impressive. Obviously, the guy who's going to stand out tonight because he got the sacks and because he was constantly in the backfield is Jordan Birch. He got those 2.5 sacks. He had, I think, 4 tackles total on the evening. But you look up and down that Oregon D-line, and you got contributions from almost everybody. And it feels now like that is they've built the kind of depth they're going to need to stop some of the very best teams in the conference, namely Ohio State coming in next week. But you look at the way that they're getting performances from Tatum Tuioti, from Birch, from Jamari Caldwell has been plugging up so much space in the middle recently. Seems like other guys are making a ton of plays because of him. Mateo Uyunglele making a play tonight. Derek Harmon has been a havoc guy all season. It just seems like they have these waves of guys that continue to create problems for the offensive line. And I think that may be, or what we're starting to see, is the emergence of the hallmark of this defense.
Yeah, we're seeing the physicality that Dan Lanning's been preaching that he wants to bring to Oregon really show up now, and you're now seeing the defensive line such a talented spot that guys that they used to recruit like Kenyon Ware-Hudson aren't even playing as much anymore. It's crazy to see, like the same thing that happened to Chris Hudson at the wide receiver position after Dan Lanning arrived, took over for Mario Cristobal and just brought a bunch of really good wide receivers in. That's literally what we're seeing happen. And thankfully you've got Uyunglele. He had half a sack tonight, but early in the game, Jamari Caldwell was affecting just about every play. Yes. He was the reason that Jordan Birch was able to get in twice on Aiden Childs, and I believe it was 2 sacks in a row. The second one by Birch, and the first one was either by Caldwell or Harmon. I think it was Harmon, that first one. And that is because he got basically, Aiden Childs got moved up out of the back of the pocket by Caldwell, and Michigan State's line had no answer. And I don't even think Oregon had to do much as far as special packages go. I didn't really see them blitzing a bunch of guys or doing many like tricks or any kind of stunts on the defensive side of the ball. So I just feel like Oregon's dominance tonight really showed. I mean, thank God for those guys up front, but then you add Tuioti and Betcher behind them. Yeah, Aiden Childs is probably running around not really sure where his option is because he's having to go to his second read and beyond most of the game.
Yeah, I think that for the most part, you're right. It seems like they are not having to send a bunch of extra pass rushers. They can get heat on almost every play against teams like this. And again, in 8 days, it's going to be a very different team that's lining up across from them. You probably are going to have to get a little bit creative to get the pressure you need to win that football game. But the way they're able to consistently get pressure with 2 or 3 guys when it doesn't seem like they're sending that many extra, and they're getting stellar coverage on the back end too, and then they're getting consistent play at the linebacker position. So it feels like because they have this reliable back end, they can just pin their ears back and go. And I love what I'm seeing from the unit. It's been really fun to hear about all the depth that they were building in recruiting and in the transfer portal, and now seeing that come to fruition. And one thing I did notice tonight is that it feels like the line has a little bit more synergy now. And there was, you mentioned not too many tricks, but I did see a stunt that they highlighted at one point in time where Amarian Winston, the Central Catholic alum, came in and he kind of chipped the center and allowed for Birch to get around him. There's an element here where I think it's more than just guys winning their one-on-ones battles now. It's guys teaming up to clear somebody out and make space for someone else. There is an element of cohesiveness I feel like we're really starting to see, and hopefully that's something that we can chat with Dusty a little bit later about tonight, as well as Anthony Newman when we hit the Ducks roundtable. But yeah, I've just been so impressed by the defensive line play. And then, like I said, you can't give credit to that group without giving credit to the rest. And the defensive backs have been awesome. I mean, Muhammad gave up a long pass for the first time, like
he looked bad on that play
all season tonight.
Yeah.
But even that,
But
like
it happens.
You're daring Childs to beat you over the top, and the receiver made a great catch. It wasn't horrible coverage. He just got beat on that play. But what stood out to me, it's like it's the only time I can think of him getting beat or even having like a pass caught on him all season. I mean, it seems like the secondary has been so stellar. And then, I don't know about the depth at linebacking because it seems like Bossa isn't out there and making as many plays as he had been. But what you've got out there with Betcher, he continues to be an animal. He's all over the field. I think you have. It's funny with all the offensive weapons, with the receivers they got in, with Gabriel, who they brought in, who was top QB in the transfer portal. This defense might be what they have to lean on in their toughest times, in their hardest games, and they might have the dudes to do it.
You mentioned the cohesiveness. They are really communicating more. It seems like along with the guys that have been there, it's kind of been a seamless transition with Kobe Savage and Jamar Muhammad and company coming in. So nice to see that for sure. I'm definitely I guess Michigan State, after tonight, is probably not only licking their wounds, but wondering how they can maybe get Aiden Childs out of trouble, because here's how I think Oregon beat them tonight, Michigan State. It was a very like pinpointed game plan to just let Aiden Childs run if they wanted to, okay? He's going to get out for 10, 15 yards.
Let him have that if he wants it.
Yeah, it's just going to happen, but try to make Aiden Childs beat you over the top like Oregon did, and he only threw 17 times. He just didn't have the numbers.
And it worked that once early, right before the fumble, but beyond that, it felt like he didn't have anywhere to go. The broadcast on television, again, did a pretty good job of showing some of the zone coverage packages that the Oregon defensive backs were playing. Talk about the cohesiveness there, that not just on the D line, but on the back end of making sure that they're covered sideline to sideline, over the middle. They're passing guys off. It's what Tosh Lupoy has going on the defensive side of the ball has been really impressive.